Hello, and welcome to... What the fuck are we going to call this, Lewis?
Did you not think of a name?
No, I still don't have a name.
I
I mean-
thought you were just going to call Plebtaku or like...
I know I threw out Plebtaku, but it's a little too close. Like, I feel like people might get upset about that.
Gotcha.
It was a pretty fucking great name, though.
It was great. It was creative genius.
Anyways, what this is weekly, each week. Usually on Friday we're going to try and record this, but if something comes up, we'll try and figure out an alternative time to record this, I suppose. Myself and Lewis here
Hello.
are going to talk about things. We're going to have like a strict format of what we're going to talk about. It won't start for this one because the new season hasn't really started yet, even though it's like the first day of it starting, but nothing's really aired so far yet.
JoJo's is there.
Yeah, what we're going to do is we'll pick 3 shows, sometimes more, but for the most part, 3 shows. The first one, what we're going to do is we'll pick probably the more like generally popular shows, one that we're both kind of looking forward to, kind of in like the general sense of a decent amount of people are going to watch it probably. Because of that criteria, like I said, we might pick up more than one of these. But probably the more interesting one is that the other 2 shows are I'll pick a show and Lewis will pick a show. And for the most part, we'll probably pick kind of like our black horses of the season almost. Like ones we're looking forward to, but not quite sure how it'll go in a general audience sense. And we'll see how it goes. And each week we're basically going to somewhat review the episodes as they air. And it'll be kind of interesting because maybe I'll pick a show that I'm looking forward to, but then it turns out I don't really like it, but Lewis does or something, or vice versa. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And then we'll talk about other things too. We won't talk about just those shows. Like if some really important or big popular thing airs that week, we'll probably talk about that too. This is kind of a podcast, but I don't really want to call it one.
I would call it a podcast, in fairness.
Lewis would call it a podcast. I don't feel comfortable calling it one. Maybe just because there's 2 of us. It doesn't really feel like a podcast.
There are many podcasts with, like 2 people. Like, what would you
True.
call it? Just like a weekly discussion on anime or something like that? Is that it?
Sort of, like a This Week in Anime kind of thing, except we'll talk about the shows that we previously
anime.
designated, and then sometimes some other stuff.
God, I don't even know what to designate.
You still haven't picked your show?
Like, I'm thinking that Attack on Titan with guns show, but, like, feel like that's just gonna be a thing we're just gonna have to talk about every week, because it's gonna be, like, the show to talk about.
Pretty much. That's probably going to be one of the most popular shows that airs. But anyways, before we get too much into the airing season, what we'll do for this starting one is we're going to talk about stuff that we watched last season, just in general kind of a sense, to kind of give, like, a gauge of how each thing is going to go this week, or each week we do this, because we won't just be like, oh, well, the episode was good, I guess. I mean, maybe if the episode sucked, we don't have anything to talk about conversation-wise, it will, but the idea is that something will happen in an episode that we can then launch into a discussion about, like, in general, maybe, as far as, like, maybe writing in shows or directing in shows and stuff like that. So it'll be more exciting than just episode was good, episode was bad, etc., etc.
That's what we hope for anyways.
That's what we're hoping for. This could be a
Yeah.
complete train wreck, which could be amusing in its own way.
I just feel like, 10 minutes of us being like, so, yeah, it was pretty good. Ting is pretty cute. Alright.
Yeah.
Well, moving on.
So I think I definitely watched way more shows than you did this season, Lewis. So I think you should probably bring up the first show. What's a show you watched that you want to talk about?
Well, I think everyone would probably want to hear your and my opinions on Erased more than anything.
That is true. Normally you would save the big bad one that everyone wants to hear about for last, but since this is the first one, we should probably start with it.
Yeah, I just get to address the elephant in the room here and just, like, get it done with, really,
Do you say address the elven in the room?
Yeah. Is that not the expression?
Elephant. It sounded like you said elven, like an elf.
Oh, right. Well, let's address the elven elephant in the room. So
Okay. I know what I think about Erased. I've thought about it for quite a while, as far as opinion-wise, but I'm curious to hear what you think about it, because I haven't actually talked to you about it, so for all I know, you fucking hate it. So what did you think of Erased, Lewis?
I feel like it was a fine show, really. Like, it got overreactions from both sides of well, groups of people really. People who liked it a little too much. That's a horrible thing to say, but that's why I'm saying. And people that didn't like it probably hated it for maybe a little bit too much, just expressing that cynicism a little bit too much. I thought it was fine. The directing was obviously the drawing point of it all. If it didn't have that key director in it, then it probably would have just fall flat for everyone watching it, and would just kind of divulge into a little bit of a, oh yeah, that was a nice murder mystery, and then that was it. But yeah, no, it was a fine show. Spoilers, I didn't really think that having the teacher as the killer was a good choice for the start of it, because I thought he was going to play that father figure for Satoru for the entirety of it, and that would have been nice, because it would have been like developed a nice little connection between Satoru and the teacher, who I think is called Yashikawa. I think
something like that. I usually forget character names like the instant a show's over, because that's how my memory works.
I usually remember the main character, but then it just fades away. But yeah, no, I just felt like they could have had a nice connection going and brewing there, but then episode 10 came around and he was the bad guy all along, and it was just...
Do you think maybe that's what the show was going for intentionally? Like, it made you want to think that way so that when it turned out he was the killer, it was more shocking?
Well, they explicitly said it, like, in like, episode 11, like, Satoru said, oh, I thought of you as a father figure and stuff like that, because he was always with my mother, but, I thought for the longest time that it would be the best way to go to have someone completely external, someone as this mysterious entity always looking over Satoru, always having that kind of presence there while not actively playing a part in his life, was going to be the killer. But then they just kind of changed that by making the teacher that foreign entity, by having him change his name, his appearance, practically everything about him, to his job, to his everything. So I just felt like it was a bad decision at the time, but I just grew to understand it, not necessarily love it, but just understand it, really. So your dislike of it was a bit more reactionary, you'd say? Yeah, I'd say at the time, really, it was just an initial, like, kind of, oh god, no, this is horrible. But then when everything played out, I feel like if it played out differently and they kind of made him this big bad evil guy, they did show somewhat of a conscience within him. Somewhat of a conscience. And that's what kind of made him justified in my book. But other than that, like, I still feel like that father figure would have been a lot more beneficial for the show and more beneficial for Satoru as a character, because he could have that kind of dependency to lean on in his childhood years, and maybe that would impact his future self a lot more. But, you know, what we got is what we got, and what we got was fine, I guess. It was fine.
Yeah, that kind of ties into some of the, well, it's a couple of the complaints I've seen here and there. Would you say that the mystery of the show, like the murder mystery aspect of the show, sometimes is a bit more of a hindrance than a positive to the show?
See, a lot of murder mysteries, they kind of bring about a lot of the how and the who done it, whereas, like, we kind of knew, a lot of people guessed who done it from the start go, because, like, even, you know, Go Jesus in his video, he said that, like, oh yeah, he did it, that's the bad guy, and he was right. And another thing that was brought about, I think you said about Gothic, that the why was it the how done it or the why done it was more important.
Generally, in Eastern mysteries, there tends to be more of a focus on the why of murder mysteries rather than the who. In Gothic, for example, it was, you weren't never really supposed to figure out who did whatever the crime was, or necessarily even how they did it. The question was why they did it, and then how it tied into the development of the two main characters and their relationship with each other.
Yeah, so simply because those two done it, so to speak, weren't explicitly addressed within Erased, it's kind of hard to look at it as a simple murder mystery, but more of a kind of a thriller, so to speak. It was more of Satoru's chase to save Kaio rather than who is the one killing Kaio, which is, fine in its own self, but I feel like the show didn't really capitalize on that sense while they're still trying to bring in the entire murder mystery arc into it while not kind of focusing on one particular genre, which is fine, but
Yeah, that kind of ties into my opinion too. Is that I like the show for the most part too. I would even say it was good, but I would say that it did have a bit of an identity issue in that it couldn't decide if it wanted to be a murder mystery or be about the why and the how, as other Eastern mysteries can tend to be. Because you can tell that part of the reason for the story is Satoru's growth from, a jaded shithead to, actually giving a shit about other people and just kind of like life in general. Because you see in the first episode, he doesn't really give a shit. He's just going through the motions.
Yeah.
And then,
He's just
but
like,
it also
I
tries.
gotta do this revival.
What was that?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking like the first episode, he just kind of like thought the revival as sort of a thing. I was like, oh god, gotta do this again, sort of thing.
Yeah. But it can't decide whether it really wants to focus on that aspect or if it wants to be a general murder mystery. Because like you said, the predictability of the teacher being the murderer was something I also predicted fairly early on. But at the same time, I also kind of liked some of the red herrings they did, like when he had candy in his drawer. Like, it seemed right then and there it was telling you that, he did it, obviously, because grown man storing a bunch of candy in his car. And his excuse of, having a sweet tooth was kind of shitty, but at the same time, like, it was vague enough that it was sort of like, is it trying to be too obvious and it's fucking with me? So, in like I guess because I kind of cheat and I view this mysteries from a meta perspective of the writer. Like, it was a pretty good red herring for me, and that I thought I wasn't sure if it was trying to throw me off or not. So it got me there, but at the same time, I still generally suspected it was him. But I've been thinking about it, and at least from the aspect of like a whodunit mystery, what would you say? Would you say the story would be more effective if episodes 10 and 11 were swapped?
Well,
for reference, episode 10 is where you figure out who did it, and then 11 is where he's, wakes up from the coma in the hospital.
So let's say at the end of at the end of episode 9, so to speak, would you say that like you would see him die, or is it just kind of like a little that would be the cliffhanger of episode?
It
or
would
is it
sort
just,
of end
it
the
would
way
literally be episode 11.
It would sort of end the way it already did, where like he's sort of like on his way to trying to figure out, who did it and protecting, the suspects. And then it would lead right into him, being in a coma and waking up at the hospital, sort of like a wait, what the fuck just happened sort of situation.
Huh. That's an interesting way of looking at it, but I feel like it'd just be too jarring, really, of a kind of thing to really look at. It'll probably help in the sense of that it wouldn't hit you immensely, and they wouldn't like bring it on the whodunit the whodunit would not automatically be revealed to you instantaneously, and out of the surprise. But really, the way it was delivered was kind of a necessary thing. They were probably thinking of a way that of many red herrings with the red eyes. I felt like the red eyes was something that they were going to tie back into a lot of things, but it was just there for a lot of things and represent evil more than anything. But
it seemed more like it represented murderous intent in a way, because whenever someone seemed like they were going to kill someone, their eyes turned red.
But didn't like Kenya have it, or Kenta, was that his name?
I don't remember if he ever had it. I just remember the one time Satoru had it when he was going to kill Kaio's mom.
Yeah, I remember that, but like, didn't Kenta in one episode while he was just kind of being suspicious of Satoru or something like that?
I don't really remember. That would have been earlier on.
Yeah, it was earlier on. I remember it more often because I probably watched it recently.
Yeah, you marathoned it for the most part,
yeah,
so you'd be better at remembering some of the earlier episode stuff than I would be.
But yeah, back to the 10-11 thing. I feel like, God, it would certainly help the whodunit, but that would kind of like tie back to, would Erase just be better solidifying itself as a thriller or as a murder mystery? I feel like if Erase kind of stuck to its thriller side of things, and Satoru's entire chase to save Kaio, it would have been a better show. So having 10 there probably helped me because it had a little bit of a fallback for the other shows to kind of make me go, okay, that's understandable, that's fine. So I feel like 10, 11, it was fine the way it was, really. Like, it was definitely jarring when it was suddenly revealed to you. But what do you think? I kind of want to hear your reasoning, because you obviously probably thought about it a lot, so...
Yeah. I mean, the show kind of dips in general when Kaio's out of the picture for reasons we'll get into right after this, but my thinking with swapping the episodes is that the reveal of obviously that the teacher is the murderer is almost a bit too sudden in the fact that it doesn't feel like, because it shows him, he's all evil looking, he's got the evil smile going on, the really dramatic one, and it gets kind of cheesy because it almost like feels like it's just sort of happening at that point, whereas I feel like if episodes 10 and 11 were swapped, and you're right, definitely it would be jarring and people would probably feel like they missed an episode. But I feel like if they make it a little, because the coma episode where he wakes up, it makes it pretty obvious that the teacher did it because you already know.
Yeah.
If they tone down the obviousness of that and then sort of just end it on him figuring, saying, I've got my memories back, and then 11 is basically back to the reveal.
Yeah.
Him saying that he has his memories back is almost like a way of him saying, like, I know who did it, and the mystery of who did it is out there and it can be figured out, because that's generally what happens in whodunit mysteries is the detective says in some way or manner, I know who did it, which is the cue for the audience to then say, know that all the clues are out there to figure it out, and if they want to, it's their turn to sort the clues out and try and figure out who did it, which is also generally why when the detective says they know who did it, it's when the chapter ends. So if the episode ended on him saying he got his memories back, people would have a week to think about everything that's happened, try and figure out who did it, even if it kind of was obvious who did it. But it would feel more earned for the dramatic, evil smile kind of reveal situation that it did with the teacher if it did it that way, at least I feel like.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it does make a sense within the mystery perspective of things, but... I feel like they would have to add a little bit of extra things and make the entire... Because Yoshikawa in episode 11 was pretty goddamn... Well, I'm just saying Yoshikawa because I forget the teacher's name, but he was pretty evil acting the entire thing. He was very he was very shady throughout it all, really. So I feel like... I feel like they would have to kind of tone that down, really, to have that kind of... keep the mystery alive, so to speak. So
yeah, I mean, you can't really test this theory on someone because of the way the episodes themselves work, with like how obvious it is with the general kind of like atmospheric clues and like the way it portrays the characters in the episode. But with some modifications to the episodes, I feel like the episode swaps would work a bit better in a whodunit perspective. Although in general, I'm kind of with you in that I'd prefer it being more about Satoru's growth more than the murder mystery itself.
Yeah. Because Satoru, when it came about to his last episode, it was obviously him realizing that, like, okay, this is my life now, I must kind of attend to it myself, which is fine, because it showed that, like, his growth was a lot more... I just don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore.
That's how these go.
Yeah, I'm just saying words. Basically, like, his growth was... They were trying to, like, obviously have that contrast with him being, like, a successful manga artist to him delivering pizza, so to have that sort of, like, growth be a lot more easily transitional, they would obviously have to, like, kind of have that flow and that kind of character arc with him there. Bringing in the murder mystery would kind of hinder that, and... So that's why I thought, like, having a father figure for him there and kind of furthering a relationship with him and teacher for person, that would generally aid the show in its own right as a character experience rather than a storytelling mystery thing. So that's just what I feel like Satoru kind of should have been a more of a main aspect to it all rather than the murder mystery. So...
Yeah, I'm with you there. But then here's the question. do you think general audiences would have given less of a shit if it was more about this character growth rather than the murder mystery?
People would have definitely not cared about, like, yeah, the murder mystery, definitely. But it's more of a fact that you got to make sure people care about the characters first, because when you display Satoru as a good person and he's trying to bring out the good within people, people would obviously, when Satoru goes to Kaio and wants to save Kaio from dying, people would obviously have a sort of, well, not necessarily affection, but it's sort of a nice little thought on Kaio at least. So when she turns out that she's a victim of it, they will probably have that sort of worry and worrisome, which will aid at least the murder mystery in some respect. But having it as a character story that's really hard to tell, because like what we got is good, but it's hard to say it's hard to say for certain having it this way would definitely improve it, or having it another way would also improve it. So it's really hard to say, really.
Yeah, it's really hard to work with hypotheticals because the context of how everything plays out is so important. So it's easy to say this way would have been better, but in context it would have been like, oh god, no.
It's yeah. Just as a complete side note, I just remembered this, but I totally didn't buy the relationship between Satoru and Airi. I just thought they were just nice friends.
That actually ties into something I'm going to bring up too. It's not only episode 10 and 11 as far as a change to the series go. There's another change I thought about that would make the show work better. Which ties into, like you just said, I didn't really get, the bond between Satoru and Airi also. I get what they were kind of going for, he's convicted of, murder, and she's like the only one who believes him because of her backstory.
Yeah. Her saving grace.
Yeah. But at the same time, do you think that maybe the show would have worked better if they swapped, starting with the events after episode 10, if they swapped the positions of Airi and Kaio? As in, Airi's the one at the hospital, and then stuff with her causes his memories to return, and then the very end reveal with the person showing up under the bridge is Kaio?
Would that make Kaio the end love interest then? Or would that just...
Sort of, but my idea is that, because you spend so long in the show wanting to save her, both the audience and Satoru, that the showing of her being an adult is such a huge deal. That showing that at the very end, kind of works with Satoru's character as far as, like, it's over, it's done, she's saved kind of situation. And I kind of get that because, like you said, it would kind of make the relationship romantic, and I feel like the author didn't really want to do that, which I can respect. But I just feel like it's a better choice, even regardless, compared to Airi, because the bond wasn't really there outside of, being the only one who really believed him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with that is that, like, it would definitely have great closure to the end of the series. It would be a great note to finish on, really, but it would be kind of hard to have that factor that would really jog Satoru's memories back. So I feel like the entire point of having Kaio there was to have that catalyst for Satoru to get his memories back, as it was like sort of an almost instantaneous thing when he touched Kaio's baby's hand. So you would kind of have to have another factor within Airi, or maybe within Kenya or someone else, that would be able to act as that catalyst to get his memories back. Kaio kind of was almost sacrificed as that sort of catalyst role. So while it would be nice to have Kaio replaced with Airi, it was kind of a necessary thing for the story to kind of progress and for Satoru to get his memories back. So
right. You're saying that, though, because Kaio is, like, part of, the childhood that he forgot for the most part, though. But he also kind of forgot that he was... Well, he did forget that he was, an older guy in a younger body. Like, he forgot about that aspect, too, which is why Airi would also really work as a catalyst to get his memory back. Because he'd remember, his older self, and then also going back in time like that. They'd have to figure out some way to make it work, like... I don't know, some conversation about believing people would have to come up, and then maybe that would jog his memory.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she was like delivering a pizza there or something like that, and I don't know.
Or visiting, an old relative maybe that's living in the hospital because of an illness.
It's true or something. I don't know. We don't know how her mother ended up like. Well, she was actually perfectly healthy now that I think about it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the like smoke in her lungs caught up to her or something like that. Or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. She's about to die and something.
That's fucked up, man.
Of course, I'm joking. It's April Fool's Day, of course. Okay.
All right, but the last bit before we leave off a race that I want to talk about, because it's kind of in your wheelhouse and we can show off a bit of your expertise, is another big talking point of the show was Satoru's VA, and the fact that he was. Did he used to do live action stuff, or he's just brand new in general?
I believe, yeah, he was a live action actor before he came into it. It was literally just one of those, as Anime News Network would call it, trying to get good talent in.
Well, before you go too far, and before Aiden sues us, you're the VA guy. Like you in the Seiyu industry are like. I'm doing something with my hands and no one can see it, so I'm an idiot. But you're into the Seiyu business, like that's your bread and butter. So
yeah.
When it comes to VAs, it's your wheelhouse. So was there like a particular reason this show specifically went with a new VA for Satoru that you know of, or was it just kind of like was it really just no real particular reason at all, and they just wanted to save money? Like, do you know why they went with him?
Generally, what happens when they hire live action actors and stuff like that, it's either one with Ghibli mainly does this, is to kind of garner in a larger audience, so it's a lot more accessible to watch. From non-anime fans. Yeah, from non-anime fans. It's like literally just like, do you want to watch an anime with Liam Neeson in it, or do you want to watch it with Laura Bailey in it? It's just a lot more easier to handle. Secondly, people tend to have, well, let's just say, dramas and anime are not the same, so to speak, obviously. So people would want to garner the acting and the general flow and general feel of those dramas and kind of transfer it into the anime. So I would think that the main reason for casting, I think his name was Shinsuke something. I don't know. Main reason for casting him, yeah, sort of. The main reason for casting him was probably to kind of garner some sort of acting, this perk or a skill within him that would kind of make it a lot more gritty and a lot less anime-like, so to speak. Because I feel, I remember the child actor for Satoru was also a J-drama actor as well, like the female voice actor for Satoru. Yeah. So obviously they kind of wanted him to be a kind of, I don't know, have some sort of grit to him, I guess. Like, it is strange to me that they're only doing this with Satoru, because, like, Kaio was voiced by Yuki Aoi, who is a very, very, very talented actress, so she's able to do whatever, but generally a lot of the cast is either filled with not so popular anime voice actresses and voice actors, or some lesser, or some old-timers, so to speak. So it's either a mix of they literally spent all their budget on this one guy, and they're just kind of hiring whoever, or they literally had a reason to have Satoru there, and part of the reason is kind of give that sort of J-drama feel to him, so to speak. That's probably the best way I could probably describe it. Because there was a difference in the way he delivered his lines, I would feel. Like, his dialogue did feel a little bit different than any other anime main character within a thriller or whatever. There was certainly a difference to be had there, but not substantial enough to really kind of garner an entire different actor altogether, really, than just a normal Seiyu. So it was kind of questionable, but I went with the flow.
Yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot of like K dramas or J dramas or shit like that, but it seems like, at least from like random pictures I see and shit that people post online wherever I come across them, it seems like the drama in those is a lot more low key, like people just kind of brooding at each other, leaving shit under the skin, rather than like explosive and dramatic. So, and even, you know, when you think about other anime, there's a lot of like explosive drama, people yelling about stuff and crying about stuff and going crazy like that. It would definitely make sense from a like delivery perspective of one who's more experienced in one format rather than the other.
Yeah, it was definitely because Satoru didn't really have any real outbursts with emotion, and he rarely really did.
He had one, and it went as well as you'd expect it to.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
That's almost like a perfect encapsulation of the difference, though, that we were just, you know, saying. Like, you know, the drama's a lot more low key and like under the skin, where in a lot less, you know, yelling and dramatic stuff like that. So when it came to a line that he had to be dramatic and yell, it was really awkward because he probably wasn't used to something like that.
Yeah. So, but his other delivery was good. Really, it was. Again, it raised some eyebrows for me when I did see him get cast, but I feel like it's not like I'm saying like no other Seiyu could have done a better job, but I feel like he was a good fit for the role after hearing everything that he did for it. So yeah, good choice.
Yeah, outside of that one line, he did good stuff. Like it was, I was sold on the character. Like I was just worried, you know, that because voice acting is such a media presentation of this kind of stuff is different than normal in general. I was worried he wouldn't be able to do it. But or sometimes, I don't know what it is, but sometimes when they get live action actors, like their microphones sound weird. Like you can almost hear the echo in the room. Maybe that was just the show itself when that happened, but I don't know. They sound kind of weird compared to normal voice actors.
I suppose that has to tie in with their training, because, you know, Seiyus have been trained for, 2 years, like how to sit there, how to
work with the microphone,
there, how to like use it, how to go. So obviously when J-drama actors are used to just like going all over the place and just having their voices picked up perfectly, it would be kind of a foreign entity to them to actually just like sit in a close way, be real close to the mic, not move all that much. You can't move your mouth all that way back, or otherwise we won't hear you all that well. So it is kind of a foreign entity with them, so I can't really blame them for them sounding weird, so to speak, but yeah.
True. Like this wasn't an issue with Satoru, this is just kind of like a general thing I've noticed with occasional things that happen. But yeah, that was I think we've covered Erased. I don't think there was anything else we wanted to mention about it, right?
No, not really. Like, directing was good. If it didn't have that good directing backbone to it, it would have probably not gotten all the hype and praise that it gotten. So yeah, good job, director.
Do we want to talk about the directing a little bit?
You probably noticed a lot more things than I did. I just probably noticed a lot more of the obvious things, really. But I just really appreciated all the pacing to it and all the scenery shots were like done and how some shots were like done. But yeah, the obviousness that you just mentioned of noticing is kind of like what worked with the directing in general, though. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say there was much intelligent directing in here. Like, this shit ain't no fucking Tokyo Ghoul season 1 ending, but it works as far as like pacing, because with a story like this, you need the pacing to be spot on to keep people's attention, and it nailed that. First of all, the second is that as you mentioned, there were some neat transitions that I liked. There were quite a few. The one I liked in particular that I noticed when it aired was the one where the teacher's on the phone, and then the pupils of his eyes transition into the streetlights when it goes to the streetlights. I really liked that one, mainly because I noticed it as it aired rather than on rewatch. But it's a lot more in-your-face directing, for sure. Like, it's not all that subtle, to be honest, but it kind of works because of that. It feels like they're not
the show...
shoving... Yeah,
what were you saying?
You go.
So,
no, I was just going to say, like, it feels like they're not shoving it down your throat while still being obvious with it. Like,
right. Yeah, it's obvious, but not like insultingly obvious. Like it's mainly just keeping your attention and just kind of like this is a thing that's happening, and that's a thing over there that's going on. Um, it's not too much like there's not too much you think on your own about, but it like I said with the pacing, it mainly needed to keep people's attention. And as far as like it kind of needed to be in your face with the directing in that regard to like keep people's attention along with the pacing, because if it started to get vague and like kind of like if the symbolism and metaphors and stuff got a little too complicated, it might lose some people. Because that's a problem I have with certain directing that it's probably someone like Ikuhara isn't a more popular director. I mean, he's got his cult following, but it's not like a generally popular director, is because he can get so bogged down in his symbolism sometimes that it just completely loses people. And I'm not saying it's, Erase's directing or Ikuhara's, but just as a comparison of how, one, as far as being obvious, can keep people's attention as opposed to being vague can lose people. Like, it's obvious which one they wanted to go for with this show.
It was, they struck a real nice equilibrium with it all, with being blatant, but also kind of being smart on the same hand. Like, when I say smart, I say as in, like, it's nice directing where the pacing is done very well. As you said, it kept everyone's attention to a goddamn T. So it was very, very well done in the sense that it was well done directing in its core sense. And I think that's what a lot of people tend to forget when you see a lot of directors, going back to even Anno from Evangelion, adding their own little symbolism here and there while trying to tell an overarching story. It's a very hard task. When it's done beautifully well. It can be done beautifully well, and when it is done beautifully well, it's fantastic. It produces masterpieces. But a lot of directors should take the approach that he's done and just literally just go, okay, we're going to direct this show good, we're going to add in some spiffy things here and there, but literally we're just going to make this good. And I would like to commend him for doing that. So yeah.
It's you would say it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation when that kind of directing, as far as like Anno you mentioned, and I mentioned Ikuhara. Like if they pull it off and it works with people, like that's how they get their cult following, and the following that they get is because it worked for those people. But when it doesn't work for others, it's just completely lost on them.
It just makes the show like an extra bit of a hassle to watch, because like it makes too much convolutedness within it, and it's just not pleasant. I'm trying to think of a show that done it, but nothing really comes to mind at the moment.
Yeah. The point that we're trying to say, though, I think, is that Erase directing isn't necessarily like amazing, but it's not boring. It's not just like, here's a shot of a character saying a thing and then we're done. Like, it actually, did a bit more than that to keep people's attention. Yeah. Like, we're not talking, Showa Roku levels of let's have a person sit here and talk for 20 minutes and keep your attention the whole time, but that's an outlier. Like, that's like, I'm amazed they pulled that off.
Well, budget constraints, I don't know.
I don't think you've seen Showa Roku, but
no, I have not.
Yeah, there's a 20-minute section where a guy just talks and sits down and tells a story in the first episode, and you don't get bored because the directing is so smart with how it pays attention to certain things, and how it shows different aspects as they're doing their story to highlight what's going on in their head just by their body language. And then also the VA work is phenomenal. So
is he just sitting down in a chair and just talking to you, or is it just
the way it works,
beyond that?
You've probably seen Rakugo, you just can't place it in your head right now. It's where they go up on the stage, the tiny little stage, and they have the little tatami little mat. I don't think it's a tatami mat, it's like a pillow kind of thing, and they just kind of sit down on it with their knees, and then they tell a story.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Shoujo
Tami.
You should watch Showa Roku.
Showa Roku. Maybe I have heard of it, and you're just butchering the entire pronunciation.
Motherfucker, it's Showa Roku.
who
SHOUWA space
Can
GENROKU.
show Uken Roku.
Showaken Roku.
Roku. No, I don't know.
Okay, we're dropping
You lost
this.
me.
Are we done talking about Erased?
Yeah.
We already moved on to Showaken Roku, but I'm the only person who watched it, so we should
I'm
talk
just
about
trying to
other stuff
spell it.
first. Like, what else did you watch this season, Lewis?
I watched all of Konosuba. All
Okay,
12
let's talk about
episodes.
Konosuba. What did you think of Konosuba?
I don't know, it was funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
It's funny.
All right,
Like,
for
you really can't say
Konosuba.
much about it. Like, it was a genuinely funny show. There was one thing which I can praise about it genuinely for not falling into like the general anime comedy traps is that it kept the repetitivity of its jokes good. As in, like, it didn't keep bringing them back. It had a nice steadiness to its gags, so to speak, and how it kind of came back to it. And you don't see that really done a lot. Like, you have Gintama levels of comedy where it's just, hey, you remember this, kids? This guy laughed, and it's funny. Let's do it again for the next 5 episodes every 5 minutes. That was funny, guys, right? Whereas Konosuba, it's very sporadic when they kind of done their reoccurring jokes, which is commendable by me. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about Konosuba, really. It was a funny
You
show.
just pissed off so many Gintama fans.
Bitch, I watched the first 5 episodes and it sucked. I don't give a shit.
You're an expert. You watched the first 5 episodes.
Yeah, I know, man. If you watch 5, you've watched them all, really, when it comes to Gintama, really. So, I watched an AMV as well of Gintama, of the later episodes, so,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there you go.
You went the extra mile, expert.
yeah, I really, really know everything about Gintama, basically. Yeah, but,
About your
Do you have
Konosuba
any?
comment, I mostly agree, but there's one exception, and that's the episode after it was pretty clear the first volume ended. The episode after that felt a bit samey with the jokes. Like, I saw all the jokes coming from a mile away. I don't remember which episode it
episode was
was.
that?
It was probably 6 or 7, but it was right after they took care of Headless Knight Bro. The jokes in the episode following that felt a
yeah.
bit predictable. I don't know what it was, but it felt like it was retreading its jokes. It fixed itself after that, but just that one episode, the jokes felt kind of flat for me.
yeah, no, I don't really actually remember that episode. It just kind of like,
Maybe that's
Yeah.
why. I'm the only one who has a problem. No one
Yeah.
else remembers it.
yeah, no, it just kind of fades out of existence. Because I think the entire business with, the Duhalon, I forget his name, but he was such a funny character. It's so great that, like, they almost needed, like, that sort of cool down episode for everyone, so, it just kind of fell into the background for me, so I just can't remember it. I probably feel the same way, but, it's just gone.
Can't remember it, yeah.
No.
Do you want to talk about what you thought of episode 9?
Episode 9.
It's the Succubi episode.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That's my thoughts about the episode too.
Like, I get it. Like, I get the joke, but, it felt weird, man. Like,
Now I'm getting, reminded of why you make sense as a co-host, because that's literally my exact thoughts too. Is I get the joke of the episode. Like, the first half was great. It was fine.
yeah.
The second half is like, I get the joke, but it's really uncomfortable to watch, and not in an intentional way. Like, maybe part of it is supposed to be intentional, but where it's trying to be, like, funny at parts, it's just, like, off-putting and uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't, I can't really comment on it because it was almost brought out of nowhere, really, because, like, it was with a lot of sporadic exceptions. Konosuba was pretty fan service free for the most part, so having that there and coming out of nowhere and just literally have main character's name escapes me. have him just be like, say, yes, I want some sweet anime titty, give it to me now. It just felt jarring, really, and it was very foreign and weird, and it was, yeah, I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, like it worked in the succubi parlor because it's sort of like, this, like, recluse where people, do their thing, and the succubi like run in, they're cool with it. But just, the second half, like, she's like, I can't tell if like her uncomfortableness is supposed to be funny or not, because it's not really. But I can't tell if it's trying to play for jokes or if like you're supposed to get that it's uncomfortable. Like, it's hard to tell.
They really stretched it. Like, that scene went on for
and it went on for so long.
I thought like the joke would just end, like when the succubus would just barge down the door or something like that, or someone would barge down the door. But it just kept going.
Yeah,
Didn't know when it would end.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, it was
straight up fan service. Doesn't even really work in the show, regardless, though, because the art's so damn ugly.
Yeah, no, blame Studio Deen for that, really. Oh dear.
Is it kind of funny, though, that Deen managed to put out some of the best shows this season despite being Deen?
What else did he do? Like
Shogun Roku. Motherfucker.
Oh, it aired this season. Oh, well, that helped me. Cause show who can
Just don't start this again. They did Shogun Roku, and its art wasn't necessarily phenomenal, but it was really good, and the directing especially was really great about it. And then they did Konosuba, which was like, obviously they're like, not even their B or C team, it was like their fucking Z team, like a bunch of squirrels drew the art for Konosuba. But yeah, they put out good stuff.
Yeah, no, I think
is it the return of Deen?
I don't know about that one, really. But yeah, no, I really just have to commend. It's really hard to tell if the source material was good. It was just really good, and they just had to do a good adaptation of it, and it would have just worked. Or they had literally, we're trying to get blood from a stone here, and we're getting every goddamn good joke out of it.
True.
Because they did feel like they did skip a big section of the light novel, because the character voiced by Yui Horii, the bard, the shop tender person.
I love that you remember VA names, but not character names.
Konosuba has a pretty good cast, in fairness. Like, it was pretty stellar. But yeah, the zombie girl that Aqua had beef with, they like had that entire arc with her seemingly just gone and placed within the 5-minute flashback. So obviously they were cutting stuff out. So it's hard to tell if it was the source material was just really good, or the director was literally just, we're trying so hard with this, we're really working on this.
True. So, yeah.
Oh, I just looked up the director, and he directed Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka, another comedy.
I liked the first season of Kore wa Zombie, and I couldn't finish the second season. It felt like it was just retreading the same jokes.
Yeah, I felt that with this first season, in fairness. Like, they were just, it was too horrible.
The jokes in the first season were pretty samey, but I felt they were presented differently enough that it worked, whereas the second season was just like, do I really want another season of this?
Yeah, no, it was just him getting killed over and over again, and I was just like, yeah, 7th episode, nothing's really changed. I'm done with this, thank you very much. Though he did direct Tokyo Ravens, which wasn't really a comedy per se, but it was a very good show nonetheless. So, director, it's good stuff.
I wouldn't know. I dropped it after 3 episodes.
Oh, you piece of shit.
Well, you didn't watch Shogun Roku, so fuck you too.
That's because I didn't even know about it. It looks, yeah, but